Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Congressman Walter Jones of North Carolina will be joining us. He's the man who introduced the legislation to unseal the 28 secret pages of the 9/11 Commission report that shows, with the intelligence documents, that Saudi Arabia was clearly behind the September 11th attacks, and our government ordered a stand down. He'll be joining us coming up at the start of the third hour. We're going to have open phones and cover news in the meantime. And, of course, this Saudi Arabia 9/11 Commission report integrates in to the fact that Joe Biden, the vice president, has now groveled before the Qatari president for daring to speak half-truths about ISIS. See, they're trying to spin this right now that this administration clearly funded al-Qaeda in Iraq, now known as ISIS or ISIL, to confuse us. And this is a major scandal in the government itself because people in the government are completely freaked out. It's a kind of a come-to-Jesus moment where they realize, wow, our government really is running and funding al-Qaeda. It's all true. And the military's waking up. It's just amazing. And so they're busy trying to spin all of this right now. And so Joe Biden has come out and said in a speech that, yes, Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Turkey and others have been funding ISIS. Well, yeah, with the U.S. and NATO giving them the weapons and then giving them directly to al-Qaeda. And so now Biden's had to back off and apologize and grovel. Those stories are up on INFOWARS.com. What's going to happen when their wind-up toys, their Frankenstein monsters, attack Europe, attack the United States? The FBI's in the news today, in The Hill and other publications saying an attack is imminent. FBI director warns of Khorasan attack. The U.S. is preparing for an imminent terrorist attack. That's the headline. Same thing in the UK, same thing in Germany, same thing in France. What happens when they attack and everyone who's got half a brain knows our government helped reconstitute them, give them the weapons, and open the door for them? You're now going to be held responsible. And that's why they're panicking, doing damage control, because they don't completely control these groups. It's like throwing a baby into a starving, pit of pit bulls. They just wind them up or dumping rattlesnakes in somebody's bed or black widows. Now al-Qaeda, under new names to confuse the public, is turned loose, running wild all over the world, from Far East, right through Africa, right into Europe, right into the United States. And when they attack, the government isn't just going to be able to take more liberties and freedoms and grandstand as saviors. Everyone's going to say, wait a minute. You created this new group. You helped protect them out of al-Qaeda. What's going on here? The chickens are coming home to roost. We have this CIA retired field commander on, Mr. Steele, who back in September predicted an Ebola false flag in America using a simulant that isn't really Ebola. He's joining us tomorrow. We're going to get that clip today. We talked about it yesterday. And we're going to play that clip. We're going to get an article out at INFOWARS.com and PRISONPLANET.com pointing that out because he came highly recommended by Colonel Schaefer and others who represent a very good block of people at the highest levels of the Pentagon. I'll just leave it at that. People always talk about, oh, we want to see a military coup. We want to see all this. It's not going to be a military coup. It's the good guys in the militaries that are leaking the info and saying no. Of course, Schaefer's a whistleblower. He said, you want to know what's really going on? Get Steele on. Steele comes on and starts just laying it out. And, of course, he basically already knows what's really going on. He just can't come out with all of it. So it's big. We're going to talk about it coming up today. Stay with us. It was the 18th of September last month, about 3 weeks ago, when Robert David Steele, a retired CIA field commander who's worked with the U.S. Army closely, was recommended by Colonel Schaefer to come on this show. And he predicted that they would launch an Ebola false flag terror attack in the United States, and that it would actually be a simulant that made people sick, but that it wouldn't actually even be Ebola, but that they needed to get infected people into the country as a cover for what they were really going to do. Now, the reason that interview was so important, again, this is the 6th day of October 2014 on this live Monday edition. The reason that's important is that Colonel Schaefer, who blew the whistle on Stratus Ivy and a bunch of other secret operations conducted in and around Afghanistan right before 9/11, Able, Danger, you name it. He was over the program to kill al-Qaeda leaders, and they were continually ordered by the CIA and by the White House not to drop Hellfire missiles on Osama bin Laden and the rest of his leadership when they had him confirmed in their sights. And Sibel Edmonds, high-level FBI, NSA translator, high-level communiques, was picking up and confirming the chatter that he testified secretly to Congress on. Now, since then, a lot of what he said has come out and been confirmed. But he said, I can't talk about a lot of this on air, Alex. He said this on air, but he also said it off air to me. He said, get Robert David Steele on. He'll tell you what's really going on. Because he'd worked with him in Army operations with the CIA, the actual arm of the CIA that's actually on the ground, actually fighting, not the 98% that just sits around in offices all day showing off their CIA coffee cups to each other. So we got him on, and he dropped bombshell after bombshell after bombshell after bombshell after bombshell. And I just don't think people realized what they were hearing when he was on the show. Was a data dump, we'll talk to him about this tomorrow, of what's really being talked about inside the Pentagon. Now, I've tried to explain to everybody something here. There's different factions in the Army, different factions in the Navy, different factions in the Marines, different factions in the Air Force, different factions in the CIA, different factions in the FBI. Everybody knows that. And the classic factions are black hats, white hats. And for the majority of this country's history, there were more white hats than black hats. A lot of boss hog corruption, but there was no attempt to overthrow the country, undermine it, destroy the family, bankrupt the country. Just no one would go along with that. We now have running these agencies groups of people that are globalists who want to sacrifice American prosperity and freedom on the altar of globalism. And so you now have the British military coming out last week and telling their government, stop funding al-Qaeda. This is on the London Telegraph yesterday. I mean, the headline, I read it on the Sunday show, was British military commanders, brass, I'm paraphrasing, they'll pull the headline up, put it on screen for TV viewers. For radio listeners, I'll read it out to you. Top British brass, or top UK brass, tell government to stop funding through Gulf states terrorist groups. And then we also see the Pentagon coming out and saying that 2 weeks ago with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dempsey. There's the headline. Army chiefs tell government stop Gulf states funding terrorism. Joe Biden comes out last week and says that Qatar and others are clearly funding terrorists. I mean, they're buying them the trucks, the armored vehicles, the weapons. They're buying it from the U.S. and NATO. They're giving it to them. But the U.S. and NATO is also delivering it directly to them. I've been harping on this forever. Because the public may not fully know what's going on, but inside government, it's what I call a come to Jesus moment. Where, oh my gosh, our government is run by criminals that really are funding a worldwide jihad of global destabilization. Oh my gosh, big mega banks really are shipping in the drugs, running the aircraft, and laundering the money. Oh my gosh, the NSA really is spying on everybody political to blackmail them and control them. It's not about keeping us safe. Oh my gosh, it's all true. Oh my gosh, we're going into a tyranny. Oh my gosh, it's the worst the world's ever seen. Do we really want to do this? And now people in government are looking because the facade has fallen. The curtain has been pulled back. The little man behind it, it's that Toto moment in Wizard of Oz. They're now going, well, who are these globalists? What is the New World Order? What's their end game? What's their goal? What's their ideology? And then you find out what their ideology is. Pure anti-human, anti-decency, overthrow of reality, total playing God, mental illness writ large. And now humanity is starting to line up on which side they've chosen. Now it's clicking. And the masses of good people around the world, not just here, in private industry, in private life, in government and corporations, you name it, are realizing everything is in danger. Prosperity, the future, you name it, to basically a 21st century French Revolution that will bring in super oppression, not remove the problems that are there. The system has been broken on design so that on its ashes, a hellish scientific dictatorship can be built. Perpetual war for perpetual peace. Perpetual martial law, the national stabilization force in every country. Secret police on every corner. Secret arrest, just hell on earth. A psychopath's dream. A man who wants prosperity and security and honor, a nightmare. And you notice good people always get down until things are overwhelmingly against them, and then that's when the good guys start standing up, historically. And the elite know that, so they've put a lot of things in place to try to stop that, but it's not going to work. We've not been hit flat-footed by all this. The liberty movement, as Ron Paul said in that 2003 speech that's in my film, Matrix of Evil, he said they're going to collapse the world economy by design in the future and on its ashes bring in planetary dictatorship. Agenda 21, total managed economy by select groups to shut down all their competition. We've got to get in place now to show they're the authors of it so that people will go to liberty and to true capitalism versus crony capitalism when the collapse comes. That's our moment of opportunity to wake up as many people as we can beforehand so we're not caught flat-footed. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've not been caught flat-footed. We've been working around the clock worldwide, the liberty movement, to warn people about what's coming, to expose the globalist program, to break down how they create crises or exacerbate current crises, to pose as saviors, and to expose their modus operandi paradigm. And once people have the blueprint, they'll know what they're looking at. And then they can go research it for themselves and find out we told the truth. And then it's not rocket science. You know the enemy. Once the enemy is identified, once they have been spotlighted, they are in deep trouble. And they've still got a lot of little tricks up their sleeve. But at that point, unless they basically decide to blow the planet up, they can't go anywhere in the next 6, 7, 8 moves in this global chess game. Once the paradigm has shifted that there is a global corporate group, anti-free market, sitting on top of the nations, playing us off against each other, divide and conquer, trying to create ignorance, trying to destroy prosperity because it competes with their monopoly of power and their hegemon. Once that genie is out of the bottle, once that cat is out of the bag, once that train leaves the station, it's over. And by the way, here's the little secret. The train already left the station. The genie already is out of the bottle. They're just now trying to keep you from realizing that, because the moment you realize that that's happened is the moment it's truly left the station. It's kind of a mile down the road right now, and they want to bomb it and blow it up before it gets too far. Not that that'll even save them, but that's the best bet they've got, is bring in Ebola, start a war with Russia, blow up some federal buildings, blame the liberty movement. The problem is our people are inside all the police departments. They're inside the FBI, the CIA. They're everywhere. We are the majority minority in government, the liberty movement, and the system knows that. Their purges haven't worked. What's going to happen when you blow up another Murrah building? I'm talking to the globalist. What's going to happen when you release smallpox or anthrax again? What's going to happen when you put a drugged-up kid on an airplane with a firecracker in his pants? We're going to have two witnesses that are lawyers that are going to blow it wide open, and Congress is going to have to admit the CIA got him on the airplane. When you run your false flags, you better do it at the North Pole, because we're watching everything you do, and we know who's behind it, and we know who the killers are, and we know who the criminals are. You understand that? And we know your plan, we know your tricks, we know your games, Jack. So don't think you're not being watched. Don't think that your whole NSA system has got everybody scared and suppressed, because all the NSA system's becoming is a giant feedback loop to wake up everyone. You gave 800,000 plus people access to total intelligence. All you did was create a sieve to expose your operations. You thought you'd use it to suppress people blowing your operations? In your greed, you blew your own operation. Humanity is rising. The latest on Ebola, the economy, the Second Amendment, and more. I'm Alex Jones, INFOWARS.com. All right, I want to open the phones up. Coming up in the next segment to discuss two different big issues. A, how big of a deal is it that you've got Joe Biden, Obama, and others trying to cover their booties? You've got Senator Lindsey, Limp Wrist Graham, and the rest of them running around doing the same thing, going, isn't it right, General Dempsey, that none of our allies ever gave any weapons to ISIS? And Dempsey goes, well, of course they did. And now the British military has come out and told their government stop arming them. And our own military has been refusing for over a year and a half to be part of it. There has been a mutiny following the Constitution, following their oath, that's gotten almost no coverage, where our military and where Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman went, remember, a year and a half ago, to the White House at midnight and told Obama, don't launch those airstrikes tomorrow, or there is going to be problems. When thousands of our military put out tweets, holding up signs, officers, saying, I did not sign up to fight for al-Qaeda in Syria against Assad. And so they rearmed them, let them take over the Middle East, and are now trying to spin it that, oh, our allies weren't even involved, we weren't involved, because this could bring down the entire system, ladies and gentlemen. They have gone way too far. Now, if they get away with this, that's why Walter Jones, the congressman, is joining us. If they get away with this, the sky's the limit. And that's why the globalist technicians, the social engineers, only do things if it helps them on a whole bunch of fronts. They're obsessed with that. They can make hundreds of billions if there's a global pandemic of Ebola on a vaccine. Hundreds of billions of the next decade, conservatively. That's not even the big reason. They can bring in a medical tyranny of oppression and control. That's more important. But currently, it's good as a political smokescreen and helps push federalization once the crisis gets going. Kind of like FEMA ordered to stand down in Katrina, and then a year later got double their funding for disasters. Failure is rewarded, so you fail to get more money. No other country's ever done things that way. We've never done it either, but that's the new system the last 15 years or so in the United States. And it becomes a political distraction while Obama's got executive orders on open borders, executive orders on getting rid of our power plants, executive orders on military, executive orders on everything under the sun, carbon taxes, you name it. While all of this is happening, we're hearing Ebola, 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 and they set the precedent to say, oh, like the CDC head said Saturday, oh, if we don't let people come in and out, that could spread it. Keeping the aircraft flying back and forth, that stops it. That's like saying, taking a hatchet to your fingers stops them from bleeding. Or shooting yourself in the head with .357 Magnum is good for you. I mean, it's just 2 + 2 = whatever I say. It's all part of overthrowing reality. As Governor Jindal said, he said, this is absolutely the diametric opposite of common sense. I'll give you his exact quote. Scroll down on that for me. The exact quote was, He said, this defies logic, not halting flights, as France and England and everybody else and the UAE and everybody else has done. But instead, they have a guy get up there from the CDC, the director, and say, no, this is no big deal. Well, then why didn't you ever let Ebola patients in before? Why would you halt flights from countries with pandemics before? It's all about setting the precedent. They can do whatever they want, whenever they want. More on Ebola straight ahead. I'll give out the number. We'll take your phone calls. We're also going to get into a bunch of other important news. 62 million people in the U.S. now speak different language at home as English begins to die in the United States. Well, sure, you don't want these groups to speak the world language and be effective. You want them in tiny little minority groups controlled by the Democratic Party El Jefe. Government, under the term democide, has killed over 262 million people in the 20th century alone, as the University of Hawaii study. A conservative number, 262 million people have been killed who were not military combatants, not soldiers. In the 20th century, the number one unnatural killer was government. Our forebears warned us. Government generally degenerates. Evil special interests get in control, and you see a full collapse of society and nightmares are born. When you have a renaissance, free market, open society, you literally create so much wealth, your grandkids become decadent slobs, and then the cycle of evil continues again. The veneer of civilization is paper thin and is wearing away right now. And we are entering the depths of a violent bottom of the cycle. So I cannot stress to you enough that this age of crisis, this age of destabilization has only begun. Most of the world is in semi-starvation mode. 30 million people starve to death a year, half of them children. Almost every third world nation is in flames right now or is completely destabilized with riot police on the street. The West are like mountains in an ocean of corruption and an ocean of poverty, but the water is rising quick in Japan, in Italy, in the United States, in Canada, in Germany, in Spain, in Portugal, in Greece, in Ireland, in Greenland. It's rising fast. And the globalists have decided to accelerate it as fast as they can to artificially bring the world to carrying capacity. And carrying capacity is if you've got 100 cows on a field and there's only enough grass for 50 cows, over the next few months, more than 50 cows will die. You go, but wait, the carrying capacity is 50. Why would 65 die? They've done studies on this. I'm giving you just a ballpark number. Because at first, they all eat things down and bring it to an even lower abundance level. So now the carrying capacity is 35 cows, 20 cows, 5 cows. The energy's being turned off. The food's being turned off. They're paying farmers around the world not to produce. Our immune systems are being lowered by design. And you've got this parasitic, technocratic class of Republicans and Democrats, of Labor and Tory, it's the same worldwide, who actually know all this and sit around preying on their constituency, playing games with you. And they're going to pose as the saviors during this long Cold War. This long siege, the most ancient and total form of war against every decent institution, against everything good, everything wholesome. We are witnessing an Illuminati revolution. Just as the French Revolution is an open Illuminati revolution. We are witnessing an attempt to overthrow reality, to overthrow truth, to fully domesticate and shackle humanity and destroy our free will. It is the opposite, the polar opposite of enlightenment or of illumination. That's why they call themselves the Illuminati. They do not illuminate. Oh, the inner circle of the Illuminati believes they are illuminated with the Master 360 Luciferian panopticonic understanding. But they themselves are the greatest of the deceived. To know the knowledge they possess and to have physically, using human ingenuity and our creativity, built semi-omnipresent surveillance systems, and to not see the destruction they are creating. Well, they actually do see it. They worship it like a moth to flame. And they are truly not illuminated, or they would not seek to dominate free will and to dominate life and to reduce life and destroy life and exterminate life out of a spoiled, rotten, convulsive, demonic orgy of darkness. But that's what's on the other side. You join with the New World Order, you have stepped in and taken Satan's hand and have asked to be pulled through into that world. I personally, studying history, studying the globalist own writings, and my own bizarre life experiences, beyond anything you'd see in a movie, do have a limited view into what the global architects are up to. It's extremely detailed, extremely wide-reaching, more than what a lot of their top people even have. But when I say limited, my soul and my psyche doesn't swim in the same waters as theirs, so I can't see it through their eyes. But I can come close, and let me tell you, it shakes my very soul. Just as they cannot see the things I've seen and where my soul dwells. Even for but fleeting moments each month, in the stillness of the night, in the quiet place of the Most High. And that's why they put fluoride in the water. That's why they dumb down the population. That's why they feed you GMO, because you will have that quiet dignity, that quiet confidence, that quiet understanding that will transcend this world and transcend all these corrupt, wicked people who, for temporal power on this globe, would cheat their fellow men and women and would pull down the psyches and the free will of other individuals in an attempt so that they might dominate. They're cheaters. And they're not fans of humanity, and they will fail. Rick Perry is under tremendous pressure, and folks know that I don't like Rick Perry because he was a big Democrat and was for gun control before he flipped sides with Karl Rove, but that can always still happen. If somebody was a Democrat and woke up, had a road to Damascus moment, I would support them if their fruits were good after that. If I didn't see the politician betrayals where they flip-flop. Rick Perry pushed Gardasil. Said it was the law to take it when it wasn't. The deadly HPV shot. But he has done some pro-gun stuff, and he has done some real stuff on the border, just because really his constituents demand it. So that's fine. He's a lot better than Dianne Feinstein or Barack Obama. But the first thing he should have done at that press conference last Wednesday is what Governor Jindal did on Friday. Call for President Obama to stop all flights coming in from 6 different African nations, 2 of which have already basically collapsed, Sierra Leone and Liberia, from Ebola. Why would you let people flee from a country that has that Well, now Rick Perry has come out and said in fight against Ebola, U.S. must set up quarantine at borders. Texas Governor Rick Perry on Monday called for the federal government to enhance screening procedures at points of entry into the United States to check if someone might have Ebola. And I said, bare minimum, do that yesterday, Perry. I know Perry listens to the show. He's told me to my face. So I just want, that's good. The procedures would include gathering more information about people coming from affected areas and perhaps taking temperatures. Think so? He said he called for fully staffed quarantine stations anywhere people enter the country. Yeah, they're going to wait till it's spreading around the country and just do it to everybody. That's fair, after all. Perry has signed an executive order creating the Texas Task Force on Infectious Diseases Preparedness and Response. So that's good. Another Ebola patient arrived in the United States on Monday, reminding the nation that the virus killing thousands of people in West Africa will likely continue to cross U.S. borders. And now the CDC is saying they believe it probably has spread to others. Really, think so? They, for 5 days, sent the guy's kids back to school. They didn't clean the vomit up for days. They let the ambulance he was in drive around for days with other sick people. The guy came in a week before, and they gave him antibiotics for a, quote, virus. It's not the state's job to do this, though the state has to because the feds won't. But when it starts to spread around the country, and I hope it doesn't, but it looks like it's going that direction, how will we hold Obama accountable? You're like, well, Obama's a puppet. Yeah, but you've got to hold the puppets accountable because then it sets a precedent where they get more power out of doing this, see? Teenager with Ebola-like symptoms quarantined in Miami after getting sick following a trip to West Africa. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's all go visit West Africa. That's a great place to go right now. It's a wonderful place to go. Child brought to Delaware Hospital for possible Ebola. That's out of CBS News. Police find man who rode an Ebola patient's ambulance. Yeah, why are police in Dallas having to go track down people? This is what the federal government and the CDC is supposed to do with their hundreds of billions of budgets for this every year. But notice they don't do anything. They don't lead jack squat. They just sit up there and say, leave the borders open, let people fly in. They don't check the plane manifest. They don't go question who this guy flew with. This has been out for over a week. No. A homeless panhandler who rode in the same Dallas ambulance after Ebola patient Eric Duncan has been found after an extensive manhunt. 50-year-old man who officials identified as Michael Lively was admitted to Parkland Memorial Hospital Sunday afternoon after being taken into custody by Dallas police officers. County Judge Clay Jenkins said he was taken to the hospital psychiatric ward. Here's the deal. This gets into another 20, 30 people. You're not going to be able to stop it. It's going to start spreading, just like Africa. And let's say it only runs through a couple 100,000 people, only kills 30, 40, 50,000. You know, let's say low morbidity rate. What's it going to do to the economy in this country or Texas when Ebola is running around? I mean, I am down the street from Dallas. I am in Austin, Texas, and I am so angry at the government. I'm so thankful to the Dallas police. They're at least doing the job of the feds, trying to hunt down people that were around this guy. This should have been done day one. He was diagnosed with Ebola. Day one, put his kids in quarantine, put his wife in quarantine, put the neighbors in quarantine. Day one, hazmat crews cleaning up the vomit. Day one, what's that ambulance? You sit there and say, what was his trail? Where did he go? You know, clean up the entire trail. Find out who was on the airplane, go to all their houses, quarantine every single one of them. Because you don't want it to spread, ladies and gentlemen. Then you got to quarantine thousands, and then hundreds of thousands, and then things collapse. Standard procedure. All of it ignored. In fact, I want to hear from emergency managers first. We had an incredible call from an emergency manager in San Antonio talking about this, how all the protocols are being ignored. Why do you think they're doing this? Where do you think it's going? Do you agree with Steele, who was on saying this could be a simulant false flag? He said that back in September, said it was coming. He's on tomorrow. We have that clip coming up. We're going to be playing it coming up in the next hour. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. I personally, for my immune system, am getting as much sun as I can, drinking as much water as I can. I got my kids taking extra vitamins and minerals. They're beyond Tangy Tangerine from InfoWarsHealth.com. I'm taking the colloidal silver from InfoWarsLife.com, the silver bullet, and the DNA force across the board in the mitochondrial DNA, emptying out the cells, getting you cleaned out, the oxy powder that flushes out the guts like nothing else. Go read the scientific information about these nutraceuticals at InfoWarsLife.com. The Survival Shield X2 nascent iodine that is just known to help the thyroid and detox, InfoWarsLife.com. If I was you folks, I would be filtering your water. I would be not sweating the small stuff. I'd be getting right with God, because it isn't just that the Ebola is now in the United States and the UN says 1.4 to 5 million are to get it in Africa. And then the only place you're allowed to run is the U.S. That's another huge issue. Obama makes the U.S. the place to run. Obama advertises, just like he advertises for kids to come here from all over the world and their families. The advertisement is, you got Ebola, come here. You want to come here and get free medical care? I mean, I got to be honest with you. If I was in Africa and thought my kids had Ebola, or I had it, I'd stay behind and send my kids, even though it's super immoral. Who wouldn't? And I would try to get them over here to get treatment. They should be hanging off helicopters. Co-workers of Ebola patient. He knew he had Ebola. U.S. trip was desperate attempt to survive. That's being reported by Breitbart right now. Print me that article. I mean, absolutely insane, ladies and gentlemen. What have I been saying? They're all going to run here. So what does it say about our government they would do this? That's 10 times more frightening than the fact that this is already here. It's why are they doing it on purpose? That's the $64 million question. 800-259-9231. If you're an EMT or a CDC person or military trained in this, what is your take on it? Really love to hear from you. 800-259-9231. But InfoWarsLife.com has the X2 nascent iodine, the super male vitality, the silver bullet, colloidal silver, highest quality, very low price compared to leading competitors, only $19.95. And the DNA force, ladies and gentlemen, the DNA force and the oxy powder for the immune system are just known off the chart to be nutraceuticals of the highest quality, the DNA Force, 888-253-3139. And the good news is, on top of that, these aren't just the highest quality products, it also funds our operation, the very tip of the spear. From right outside Patient Zero, I come to you live from Austin, Texas. We're going to have our reporters in here today as well coming up to tell us their take on what they saw in Dallas. Joe Biggs, Josh Owens, and others. Stay with us. Broadcasting worldwide. I'm your host, Alex Jones. We're going to your phone calls here throughout the next hour. In about 10 minutes, Paul Joseph Watson's article dealing with former top CIA field commander going public, predicting back in September that he was being told that a fake Ebola attack was coming in America. I think I'm going to have added to Watson's article. If you go back to Wolfgang Wodarg, the head of the EU viral program, he first confirmed, well, he confirmed after medical doctors and others here had said that H1N1 appeared to be a viral simulant 5 years ago that had been released the previous year to, quote, track viral spread. It is a virus, but they call it a simulant because it was so attenuated but still allowed to spread. Then they used the outbreak of it the next year to claim it was deadly to sell a vaccine that actually lowered your immune system by 50%. So we should probably add there's precedent for this, where they release a biological simulant that does make you sick or even kills you, but is either weakened, attenuated, or something else, where, say, it's designed to mutate. They know how it's going to mutate. It's a previous generation, and they know it'll mutate and then won't kill the next group. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do this without getting technical. I'm no virologist. I just read the medical literature. To then have a limited outbreak, but something they control, like SARS. So Watson has an article coming out on this in the next 10 minutes, and we will play the video from 3 weeks ago when Steele was on the broadcast. That's coming up in the next hour, about 15 after or so. That article should be up, and we will play that clip from the interview here on air, and that video will go live on INFOWARS.com and PRISONPLANET.com. But right now, first caller of the day, Rich in Oregon, you're on the air. Thanks for calling.
Hi, Alex. How are you today?
I'm fine, sir.
Hey, I believe it is a false flag. It has to be. But you know what? The unfortunate thing is people probably will die from this. I mean, they are dying in West Africa, obviously. According to the lying media, it says 3,400 people have died. Who knows really how many have. So the only thing I can personally do for myself and my family is I have been taking Survival Shield and the Fluoride Shield, you know. And I even went to my doctor and asked them about that. He said that it's a good step and it's the right direction. However, you know, they don't really know a lot about it. But well,
obviously, nothing's a silver bullet, but the only thing the federal government ever said till fluoride, put it in the salt, was iodine, because there was just massive goiter and illnesses and thyroid across the country, and millions of people, within a few years of them doing that, reversed it. And so we just found the very best of actual nascent crystal iodine that, because of the FDA and stuff, I can't even say all the things it does. The point is, it's well-known. It's well-known for IQ, well-known for your glands, well-known for immune system. So is silver, but that's not something you take long-term. It's during a problem. It's well-known that it's things, CoQ10 and PPQ and all the stuff that's in the DNA force. I mean, so I'm glad your doctor said that, because listen, all we sell is what we know is really real. It's nutraceutical. That's why the DNA force is so expensive to get the products. But anyway, sir, I'm sorry I'm ranting. Go ahead.
Well, anyway, I was, you know, I'm totally sold on it. Me and my wife and my children, we take it, you know, and stuff. And we've been around people that's had colds and everything, and nobody's gotten sick yet, you know. So that's what I believe in.
Well, I know that the X2 alone, the super iodine, has changed my life. Hold on. I'm going to come back and let you get to your point about Ebola. Then we'll go to Wild Man, Lab Rat, Truth Raider, Shane, and others.
Thank you for
And then after we take these calls, I just want to get emergency managers or EMTs or people trained in biological response on for a while. Now, coming up in about 20 minutes, we'll go right back to your calls, Rich and Wild Man and others that are patiently holding. Talking about this Ebola outbreak in Africa now coming to the U.S., and the president won't to try to stop flights into the country, even though that was the default with the CDC previously. Governor Jindal has called for that. We are joined by Representative Walter B. Jones from North Carolina. And, of course, he's one of the few Ron Paul types we've still got in Congress and is leading the charge up there on so many issues that are near and dear to the Constitution and Bill of Rights. But he has introduced legislation this year that's now gotten a lot of attention. And we've had a lot of different military people on and whistleblowers who have seen the 28 pages of the 9/11 report showing clearly the Saudis were involved and our government knew and basically had a stand down. He's been working to get that released, and he joins us to talk about that and other issues. So, Congressman Jones, thanks for coming on.
Alex, delighted to do it, and I want to thank you. This is an important issue because for our country, if the American people don't know the truth about 9/11, there is no hope for our nation, in my opinion. So I'm delighted to be on your show.
Well, thank you, sir. You know, it's perfect timing to have you on. It's coming out that our own government with NATO has been arming ISIS. They've been that our so-called Gulf state partners have been arming them. This is just a replay of what we've seen before.
Alex, there's no question about it. That's why it's a totally different issue, but very quickly I have joined some of my colleagues asking John Boehner to bring us back. Let's have a debate on this Syrian situation, and I'm very disappointed that Speaker Boehner will not do that, and he keeps saying, well, if the president asks us to bring you back, we will. And I've said to Mr. Boehner in letter form, Mr. Boehner, you have the authority as leader of the House to bring us back at any time to let the House debate and discuss.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more before we go to break and come back with the 9/11 Commission, redacted 28 pages.
Okay.
We've seen the British military come out and say that the British government should stop arming the radicals. We've seen our own military, as you know, on the Hill in closed hearings saying the same thing. I'm proud that our military has been against this from the beginning, but our political leaders on both sides of the aisle have been for it.
Well, Alex, it's very disappointing. We did have a debate on the floor of the House about arming or training the Syrian rebels, and sadly it passed. And I spoke out in opposition to it with the 2 minutes I had on the floor, and other members in both parties spoke out against it. And I do not understand why the president continues to bypass Congress. He bombed Libya, which was unnecessary, and he continues to want to bomb in Syria. I think it raises legal questions, but that's another issue. I'm not an attorney, as you know. But to me, Congress is not following the Constitution, and therefore I'm very disappointed in the leadership that would not allow us to have a debate. And actually wrote a letter to Mr. Boehner last week asking that when we come back for what's called the lame duck session, we can at least have a 2 or 3 day debate on this Syrian situation, because, in my opinion, the policy is the failed policy to begin with.
Jones.house.gov. And when we come back, we're going to get into Declassify, the national campaign to reveal the 28 censored pages of the 9/11 Commission. But didn't you also introduce legislation that if Obama continues to launch wars without congressional approval, that impeachment would get triggered, sir?
Well, I'm sad to tell you I did introduce it, but I can't even get a hearing on the House side, and we're controlled by Republicans, and they won't even give me a hearing on that issue.
Incredible. Well, doing the right thing is what counts, and just like Ron Paul would introduce stuff and no one would co-sponsor it, down the road he got a lot of co-sponsors, and I know you are getting a lot of support for your declassification movement of the 28 pages. We'll talk about that with Congressman Walter Jones, a true hero of telling the truth and liberty, the Republican from North Carolina. We'll be right back. It's jones.house.gov. Stay with us. He's in. Obama has promised to bankrupt coal in this country that did supply about 60% of our power, now about 40. Energy prices have almost doubled in the last 6 years, electricity. Well, the Democrat Senate candidate, Allison Grimes staff caught on hidden camera. She's lying about support for coal industry. U.S. Senate candidate Allison Lundgren Grimes is lying about her support for the state's coal industry, according to Kentucky Democrats, including members of her campaign team, who were caught on a hidden camera video, saying, yeah, we go out, we shoot guns in public, we say we're conservative, but once we get in, we're going to bankrupt coal. Well, Obama famously said that as well. So that's what they're doing. I don't own one stock in coal. I own zero coal. But I'm against shutting it down because it's clean. It powers our country. I don't want to get off down a rabbit trail with Congressman Walter B. Jones of North Carolina, who's introduced legislation to impeach Obama if he continues to launch wars without congressional approval. He's introduced legislation that's getting a lot of co-sponsors as well to release the 28 pages of the 9/11 Commission report, jones.house.gov. But let me just ask you briefly what you think about coal being shut down in this country, throw a wild card at you, a curveball, and separately about the Ebola flights being allowed to come in out of West Africa. What's your take on both those issues, sir?
Well, I think any opportunity to use any type of energy to help the American people, as long as it's clean and safe, and that's been proven about the coal industry. They've made gigantic gains in trying to make sure that their product is clean, and I think they've done a great job. I think it should be a way that we can have that option. And as far as Ebola, I have already read to the White House, joined many of my colleagues to say, stop letting these people come into this country.
So you're on record with colleagues writing a letter to the president saying, stop the flights.
Absolutely.
And there's almost no media coverage of this. And the head of the CDC is out saying, quote, it will make Ebola spread if we don't let them come in. I mean, that is the most asinine thing I've ever heard.
I would agree with you, and Alex, that is why many of my colleagues from North Carolina and other states are asking the administration to use the authority they have to protect the American people from any type of disease that's got the potential to be an epidemic. And I can't explain.
You've been around a while, and does it seem like we're living in the twilight zone? I've never seen government act this way, this reckless on so many fronts. Our southern borders wide open while they're saying ISIS terror attacks are imminent. It's just bizarre.
Well, you know, I've made the statement many times that I believe that we are at a crossroads in this country, and if we don't make the right decisions in the next presidential election, there will be no hope for America. And I'm a big Rand Paul supporter, by the way.
Well, God bless you, my friend. I tell you, it's just so frightening when you have children or grandchildren.
It really is.
To just
Alex, really, another subject very quickly. The debt of this nation. In the year 2000, our debt in America was $5.6 trillion. Today, it is over $17.7 trillion. How much longer economically can a country continue to borrow money from foreign governments to pay its bills before it collapses? I don't know. Then you got Ebola, and then you got all these other issues. I mean, we could do another show if you want to on the 28 pages, because I will tell you the truth. That in itself, the 28 pages, the American people, the families of 9/11 have a right to see what's in there. And I can honestly tell you, when you've got the former two chairmen, Senator Bob Graham, retired now, lives in Florida, from Florida, and Richard Shelby, still in the United States Senate, and their inquiry commission said that, yes, it should be declassified. Then you've got Hamilton and Kane, recently, as recently as 3 weeks ago, former members of the House, and then the former governor of New Jersey, Kane, saying it should be declassified. And there's no reason the American people should not see the truth. It was George Bush that classified this information. Mr. Obama owes nothing to George Bush, but he does owe to the families of 9/11 the right to see the 28 pages, and certainly the American people. And Mr. Obama has told the families twice that he would allow them to see the 28 pages. And Steve Lynch, a Democrat, and myself have written to President Obama in April of this year reminding him that he made this promise, and he needs to keep his word to the 9/11 families. And we stand on top of that. We call the White House every now and then. We have been told as recently as 2 weeks ago that in the next 4 or 5 weeks they would give us an answer to our letter.
extremely powerful, and that's the main reason Congressman Walter B. Jones has joined us today, is to talk about what he can say is in those pages. I've talked to military sources, other congressional sources. You were on at the first of the year when you first introduced the legislation. What can you tell us, without violating supposed national security laws that they use to hide all these crimes, what can you tell us is in the 28 pages?
Well, what I can tell you in the 28 pages is nothing about national security. It is about relationships, and it could be somewhat embarrassing to the Bush administration. But I'm telling you that the American people need to know those people in Saudi Arabia who were not our friends at that time. And I'm not going to the very top of the Saudi leadership, but I'm just saying that the Saudis need to let the American people know who within their country, who was involved in financing this 9/11 attack. And that's been in the press. I'm not telling people anything that I read, because that's been in the press. That's speculation.
That's right.
We've done 2 press conferences with family members who lost loved ones. One in March, Thomas Massey was there, Steve Lynch, myself, and family members. And we did another one 3 days before 9/11 in Washington, D.C. with family members. And they're calling on the president to keep his word to them, that they have a right to see the 28 pages, and the American people do also.
Now, if the 28 pages comes out, what do you expect will come of that?
You know what will come of it? It will be exactly what it needs to be. It helps educate the American people to what happened on 9/11, and it doesn't do anything any more or less. And I would tell you, Alex, that if people really want to, Bob Graham down in Florida, I've talked to him. He Skyped during one of our interviews to give his call to the president to declassify. I have spoken to Senator Manchin just 2 weeks ago, as a matter of fact. I've spoken to Senator Paul about it. The American people need to see this information. If it was national security issues that involved, I would not be on your show today. It's only about relationships.
Well, look at how Vice President Biden apologizes this weekend to the Prince of Qatar over coming out and saying that our, quote, allies should stop arming ISIS. It's on record they're arming ISIS. So how have we gotten to the point that we're so controlled by these Arab states that they could be funding al-Qaeda under the name ISIS, and our vice president has to apologize when he states the truth?
Alex, that's why, again, I think that America needs the kind of leadership that Rand Paul, just like his father Ron Paul, would have led this nation, to help us to understand that we have a Constitution, and if we don't follow the Constitution, then we're headed for worse times than what we see today, and it's not really good right now either. I don't understand why. I mean, this is the way I feel about it. First of all, we had no business going into Iraq. We would be better off with Saddam Hussein in leading the people of Iraq. He understood his country a lot better than the Bush people did. We have created the problems we've got in the Middle East right now by going into Iraq. Obama should not have bombed Libya and taken out Gaddafi. That country is about to fall apart right now as well. We need to start taking care of our own problems here in America. Fix our problems with the border. Make sure that we protect people from diseases coming into this country. We need to stop worrying about the world and fix our own problems right here in America.
That's right. Even the New York Times admits that ISIS ammunition had U.S. origins. This goes right back to the same 9/11 issues. They're creating and aiding these monsters so that they can be used as a pretext to take American liberty away. Congressman Jones, thank you so much for the time, and I'd love to get you back up to cover the waterfront anytime. And I appreciate your leadership there in the House. You just absolutely stand on principle and the Bill of Rights and Constitution. And I know there's a lot of new people getting into Congress as well. I've seen the Republican leadership with the Democrats try to block the Tea Party's ascension. But we need the new blood. We need the Republican leadership to stop blocking a libertarian conservative takeover. What is your gut, and what's the word, the feeling on the Hill at the Senate? Do you think the Democrats are going to lose the Senate?
I think there's still a 50-50 chance that could happen, and I would tell you that we need to change the leadership in the House, and we got a small group working together. We've got a mountain to climb, but we need to change the leadership in the House, and we need to get people who understand there is a Constitution, and you can't be bought by money.
Who do we, I mean, you could be a great Speaker of the House. I mean, how do we get rid of Boehner, who funded Obamacare and protects Obama and supports all these new wars and supports arming ISIS? I mean, how do we get rid of Boehner?
Well, we're trying. We've got a small group of about 7. I will not call their names. You can understand that. Your listeners can understand. But I have been told that there are 3 different groups. But in one group, I don't know who is in the other 2 groups. But we need 20 to 25 Republicans that will stand up on the day we're sworn in and not call the name of John Boehner, and then we can stop it and get it going to a second round, and then somebody will emerge.
Well, as soon as you can, I'd like to have you back up about that for another 15, 20-minute interview. Jones.house.gov. You can find his Twitter, Representative Walter Jones, as well. A lot of excellent articles and videos on the sites. Thank you so much for the time, sir.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure, Alex. God bless America.
God bless. God bless America. God bless you. There goes Congressman Jones. We'll be back with your phone calls on Ebola and more. Stay with us. All right, what happened was Walter Jones and staff had thought he was on in the 3rd hour, but they got their time zones messed up, so he was on earlier in the hour. That's why callers had to hold. I want to go to a bunch of calls, everybody that's been holding, and then I'm going to get back into the news. Big breaking news. Apocalypse scenario, close quote, is what the top professor, virologist, is warning of. Apocalypse scenario. Discoverer of Ebola virus fears that it could mutate. Professor warns of humanitarian catastrophe. That just went up on INFOWARS.com and PRISONPLANET.com. Another headline, journalist with Ebola arrives at Nebraska hospital. Another headline, cop threatens to take man's baby to child services over refusal to show ID. Nervousness could be a cause to have your kid taken. I tell you, and meanwhile, there are just crack houses full of little kids everywhere. That's my issue with Child Protective Services is they'll leave a kid with obviously super abusive people, and then they'll take kids away because they played at a park 100 feet away. It's just, you know, a 10-year-old. It's just so politically correct. I can't figure it out.
Just happened here in Texas.
Yeah, it just happened here in Texas, famously. I mean, it's wild.
2-year-old.
Now, I want to go to your phone calls, as I said. Breaking, Paul Watson's article should be up there any minute, dealing with the CIA insider who predicted that they would launch an Ebola false flag. In fact, it just went up, red-linked. CIA insider warned of Ebola false flag in September. So I'm going to go to your calls now. When we're done with the first round of calls, I'll play that clip and get to that article. Rich in Oregon, thanks for holding. You got cut off by a break earlier. Go ahead and make your points.
My point is the Ebola obviously is a false flag. You have plenty of whistleblowers. You have plenty of evidence of that. You also have plenty of support from your listeners and also to the getting back to the documents that you have. My question is, or maybe just get your take on it, why isn't somebody paying for this?
That's what I've been asking is, we know they're bringing people in that have Ebola. We know they're not quarantining those that had it, their families that could be spreading it. We just know that they've violated all the protocols and law, all the defaults, and it's like leaving the hatch open on a submarine when you submerge. It is totally criminal, and I think they're just setting the precedent, because a bunch of lawyers run this administration, to just get away with bloody murder. This is what criminals love to do. When they don't get caught or don't get in trouble, what do? They escalate. They get more bold. They get more out of control. They start taunting. This is basic criminology. And I think they want to use an Ebola outbreak to basically bring in martial law. That could be what's happening here. What do you think?
I hope not. It's a scary thing, you know. I just don't know what to say. All I can say is I appreciate everything you do, Alex. Keep up the good work. I mean, there's really nothing else I could say about it.
I'm shell-shocked as well. I mean, I woke up at like 4 a.m. this morning, and I just laid there staring out the window at the stars. And I was just thinking to myself, why is this happening? Why is the elite... So, listen, they shouldn't have given him a visa. The guy, it turns out, knew he had Ebola and came here. Of course. What do you think is going to happen with countries with millions of people now set to get Ebola, according to the computer models? They're going to try to go to a country that has medical care. And they can't get into Europe. They can't get in the Middle East. They're going to come here. They can't get into Asia. They're going to come here because America is a joke. And I don't say that with enjoyment. I love this country. But we're just such a joke now. Wild Man in Texas, you're on the air.
God bless you, brother.
God bless you. Go ahead.
And by the way, I'm a Monteith as well. There ain't too many of us left, but at any rate.
So your last name's a Monteith as well?
Yes, sir, it is.
Isn't that an old Scottish nobility name?
Yes, it is. It is Scottish. As a matter of fact, they wrote a book about the Monteiths, and my dad had got it, but it got stolen from when he passed away in '95. He was a year younger than Dr. Stan Monteith, and it made me kind of look because that picture you had of him, he had my granddad's nose. Dr. Stan Monteith did, so it makes me wonder if he wasn't a cousin of my dad. I'd have to look into it.
Who knows?
Find out.
But a noble line.
Yeah, it is. I can't hold a candle to him or you, either one. But I'm spreading the word up here in Amarillo as fast and hard as I can. People think I've just escaped from the nut hut, but I really don't care because people got to wake up. But at any rate, on this Ebola thing, you had Steele on. I was watching that program when he was on, and you had Paul Joseph Watson and
I don't want to cut you off. Stay there. I'm going right back to you, Wild Man, then Truth Raider, Lab Rat, Shane, and others. I want to hear from EMTs. We had some of those calls yesterday. Your take on all this, 800-259-9231. I am your host, Alex Jones. Don't forget, the Nightly News is coming up tonight, 7 o'clock Central. I'm going through your phone calls right now on Ebola. And then CIA insider warned of Ebola false flag in September. Former case officer predicted outbreak in U.S. 2 weeks before Dallas case. Well, he said he was being told by sources, actually. He joins us tomorrow, live, on the Tuesday 7th of October, 2014 transmission. And again, he came highly recommended from Colonel Schaefer. He said, we don't know what's really going on. Interview this guy. He's out of the government. And he just came on and just false flag at the Boston bombing, false flag at Sandy Hook, which we already know, but he was detailing it. And they're going, and the word he's getting is they're going to launch a Ebola simulant false flag. And then 3 weeks later it happens. Just unbelievable. So he'll be joining us tomorrow. And the reason you're seeing more of this is people in the government are done playing games. I'm going to say this again. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who I'm not lionizing, but he did it, last year went to Obama and said there's going to be a mutiny in the military. We're not going to openly back al-Qaeda against Syria. Don't do it. The British military went this weekend to Parliament, their chairman of the Joint Chiefs, their heads, and said, do not fund radical Islam anymore. Okay, we're done. The public knows about it. We don't want to be part of it. No. See, there's an open decloaking happening right now where the establishment is basically raising its skirt and showing us what's under there, trying to sell us on the fact that it's apple pie, and it isn't. It's a dead horse, basically. People don't want this. People don't want to openly join with evil. As corrupt as the West is, but the sickos that run things just really have a desire to do this. And all they're going to get is big trigger events against them. The harder they push, the more pushback they're going to get. It doesn't matter if they've got half the public drooling, talking about their favorite sitcom or sports center. It doesn't matter. If you've got 10% of the public knows what's going on, it's game over. We've got way past that. We got it where it counts. People are sick of it. Wild man in Texas. Go ahead and finish your point up about Ebola.
Yes, sir. As I was saying, I was watching Paul Joseph Watson and David Knight last week, and they also said that somebody had warned or said that it would hit the United States in October. And I don't remember how that was, but at any rate, on the other side of that coin, I'm thinking with the borders being open and now all the airlines coming in here and everything else, you don't get some of them nutbags over there, ISIS, contracting the disease and just sending it over here as another way to get it.
Well, that's what people have been saying for months, and Geraldo Rivera said it's racist if you say that. No, that's what's going on. And undoubtedly, you've got these countries collapsing now, so they're going to have people like this guy that came here with Ebola trying to get here. And Obama and the CDC's answer is, no, we're not going to stop those flights. So they are directly to blame when it happens, and they are going to be held accountable. I thank you so much for your call. Truth Raider in Oregon, you're on the air.
Hello, my friend Alex. I have to say I apologize. And why I say that is because, I know you don't like to be thanked. But thank you for putting me up on your YouTube channel. I sure took a terrific amount of heat, but it was well worth it.
Okay, man, that's great. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, this is it. This is I predicted the Ebola outbreak coming in the fall. But this is why they're doing it. It's a dirty 4-letter F word called fear. Fear. It's exactly what they want people to be. It's unsafe, feeling of insecure, and in fear.
That's right. So while they rob the Treasury and overturn the Constitution Bill of Rights, we're busy worried about Ebola. Great point. Let's talk to another caller here now. Let's talk to Shane in Pennsylvania. You're on the air.
Hello, Alex.
Yes.
I love you, brother. Quick question, quick comment. You've been doing this a long time. You're pretty good at reading in between the lines and stuff. What's your opinion on the Ebola, Alex? Do you think, really, do you think false flag or do you think red flag?
Undoubtedly, they have souped up Ebola at labs that the West has over there that we know they admittedly have. They've released it right on time as Monsanto and others are getting their Ebola vaccine ready with Bill and Melinda Gates. And bare minimum, they've opened the door to bring in the patients and let people fly in, hoping it spreads, thinking we're so dumb that the ruling class won't get in trouble for what they've clearly done. So if you knew that a grizzly bear was killing everybody that tried to camp out at a certain spot, and you took your little kids out there and chained them up to a tree at night, you would be an accomplice to their death, and it'd be murder one, premeditated murder. And so by opening the borders up, by letting the flights come in, by not hazmating anything for days, they are aiding and abetting this at the CDC. So it is a false flag. Whether they made the crisis or opened the door for it, they aren't letting it go to waste. They are aiding and abetting it, and so they are murder one. They are murder one when Americans die from this. They are murder one. And it is economic sabotage against industry. The globalists are going to make a bunch of money out of the response to it. It's just a new war that they can manage like a black hole and feed our tax money into.
I agree.
Just like lawyers will have a divorce going and will drain both sides in it. It's just like the Rothschilds would fund both sides of a war. The globalists manipulate people off against each other, divide and conquer, and it's what's happening right now. What do you think's behind it?
Well, I think it's a false flag, but I don't know. Earlier you had mentioned about a big farmer grab for money, vaccine thing. I'm thinking maybe that's the route they're going.
Well, they always allow something to happen or actually orchestrate it if it helps them on a bunch of fronts. And this will bring in medical tyranny, hundreds of billions in vaccine sales over the next decade, big political diversion, expansion of Obamacare as a federalized FEMA. It just helps them on so many fronts if they can politically get away with it. And they don't care, even if we impeach Obama over it. So what? The special interests will get what they want. Again, Boehner won't repeal Obamacare. We put up with that. Why not bring Ebola in here? Thank you so much for the call. Lab Rat in Virginia, you're on the air.
Alex, it's really good to talk to you again. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good to talk to you, brother.
Outstanding. Listen, I got a couple things, and I got a DNA, so I'll finish up with the DNA, whatever, I forget what the DNA Force super story for you. But I absolutely agree 100%. My sister is she's a studying epidemiologist, and she's done internships and friends with the CDC. Their protocols are absolutely 100% being ignored. Everyone from Dew to Biggs to every single one of your excellent reporters knows that. Look at the quotes that you guys were putting out ahead of time from the World Health Organization and the CDC. They were absolutely apocalyptic. This is going to end the world. I mean, the CDC was losing their hair over this thing. It gets to Dallas, don't worry about it. It's going to be, don't forget about it. It's fine. We got this. We're good. Oh, really? You're good? Go to your, everybody call your local hospital. Ask to speak to the head nurse. Ask them how many negative pressure rooms they have available, how many beds they've got in negative pressure rooms, because that's what it's going to take when somebody's spewing blood and vomit and feces all over from every orifice. We are not ready, but I agree with you. This is 100%, like everything else, a stand down. I ask your guy tomorrow. Is this just a simulation? And they are studying you as much as or more than anybody else because you are at the tip of the spear. You've said it yourself. They want to see who's going to buy what, how the alternative press is going to handle this, how the liberty movement's going to handle it, how the zombies and the sleepers are going to handle it, how the, quote, useless eaters are going to how everybody. This is a study en masse. And they may, you're right, let a few 100,000 go. That's the sad part. But what's
they are wargaming, just like they admit they did with H1N1 that was a simulant, that came out that was a simulant. They are wargaming how we'll respond to a mega pandemic in the future. And this could be a simulant. But it's killing a lot of people in Africa, so whatever it is, it's lethal. Great points. Good to hear from you. I'm going to continue with calls, but right now I want to cover this article. And, guys, will you print me a copy of it? Some of the news stories that have broke. Thanks a lot. CIA insider warned of Ebola false flag in September. Former case officer predicted outbreak in U.S. 2 weeks before Dallas case. Former CIA insider Robert David Steele warned during a September 18th appearance on the Alex Jones show that a staged Ebola false flag attack was on the horizon 2 weeks before the first case was confirmed in the United States. We need to add the point that he said he's been told by sources. He's not just speculating. He says he's been told. He's hearing. That's key. Steele, who is now an author and lecturer, previously worked for the Central Intelligence Agency as a clandestine services case officer and also ran as presidential candidate of the Reform Party. They will have another false flag. In fact, that false flag I'm hearing about is a simulated Ebola attack in which they actually use biochemical weapons that dissipate. But then they pretend that it's Ebola and that it has been brought here by Saudi martyrs, said Steele, adding, "We have not reached the end of the false flag line." Steele elaborated by warning that the chaos created by a false flag attack could lead to a general strike across America. Steele's website, Public Intelligence Blog, also warned of a false flag Ebola outbreak in the United States almost 2 weeks before the first case of Ebola was confirmed in Dallas. And it goes on, if Ebola virus hits the USA, it will be in this order or probability: a false flag biochemical stand-in, B, volunteers ready in the USA infected by Saudi clandestines, C, white virgins not known by the USA to be associated in any way or combination, that's what they're called in the CIA, as people working for them or cutouts, that are rogue elements in the USA that would be happy to kill citizens for effect. And there are rogue elements among our allies, including the Zionist government of Israel, that would be equally happy to screw the big or great Satan, Saudi Arabia. And it goes on, an individual who said he worked as a first responder, an emergency manager in Texas, also called in to the Alex Jones Show on Sunday to assert that the botched response to Ebola outbreak in the United States was on purpose. Well, I don't think, see, he's not asserting it. It doesn't matter if the guy was an emergency manager or not, even though clearly he was. It's in the manuals what the default is. We need to do articles about that. And about how, what the caller just said, it's a default stand down. We need to be focusing in on that it is a stand down. Why is there a stand down? Why are the flights being allowed in when nobody else does? Okay, and we're still saying, is it? Is it? No, it is. So let's go ahead and play that clip, a short clip of the Steele interview. The full clip is linked under it as well. INFOWARS.com, PrisonPlanet.com. Retweet the story to cause a debate about this. CIA insider warned of Ebola false flag in September. Here it is.
They will have another false flag. In fact, the false flag I'm hearing about is a simulated Ebola attack in which they actually use biochemical weapons that dissipate, but then they pretend that it's Ebola and that it has been brought here by Saudi martyrs. Okay, so no, we have not reached the end of the false flag line. However, what we have reached is, I did my first graduate thesis on predicting revolution, and there's a difference between preconditions of revolution and precipitants. And I have posted a graphic on preconditions of revolution that exist in the USA today. Now, a precipitant is like the Tunisian fruit seller. My preferred precipitant is a soccer mom that tortures herself on the steps of Capitol Hill, and it appears on YouTube. But the bottom line is the next false flag could lead to a general strike across this country.
All right, and again, you can see the full interview at INFOWARS.com. I'm going to go to break and come back with more of your calls and open phones right into the third hour. The issue isn't even for me the Ebola. I mean, I didn't think it would come here 2 months ago, and then they started bringing in infected people, and I said, that's never been done before. That's against the law. No one's even pointing that out in the news. Clearly, they want a cover, as I said a month and a half ago, a cover for when it does break out. They can blame it on something. And then they let this guy fly in who'd been in the hospital and knew he had Ebola to vomit and spew and go to the hospital here and diarrhea all over the place. And I mean, undoubtedly he gave it to people if it's real Ebola and they're saying it is. And then now it's just don't worry about it. You know, go to sleep. Everything's fine. What do you think's going on? Why would government act like this? Why would our border be wide open? Why would Geraldo Rivera say it's racist to not want everybody to have open borders? When clearly this country is under siege. I mean, no one. Other African countries bordering. This is important. Sierra Leone and others have locked down their borders. I mean, our government does whatever is bad. I mean, it really comes down to that. It's so over the top. They have the Dallas police trying to chase down who was around this guy instead of the feds. And this is a federal issue. It's a local issue as well because there's public harm, you know, taking place here. But the main purview is the feds, and they have the giant budget, so they're doing nothing. Just like they ordered the police to stand down at Katrina and cut the police radio towers down and cell phone towers down and let it all collapse so they could then come in and have a bigger crisis and get more funding. Oh, it makes me angry. 800-259-9231. John, Donna, Eric, Marty, Alex, we're all going to get to all your calls coming up. Briefly, I personally, for my immune system, am taking the lung cleanse, lung shield from INFOWARS Life 3 times a day, just 3 shots in the mouth and inhale. I personally am taking the DNA Force, known to boost your immune system and clean out your cells and do so much more. It's just a super cutting-edge nutraceutical. The X2 Super Iodine does just supercharge my body, my health, help flush out and clean me out, get my glands in shape. You can read all the actual documentation, see videos breaking it down at InfoWarsLife.com, whether it's Super Male Vitality, Silver Bullet, Colloidal Silver, Oxy Powder. You know, they say 70 or more % of your body's immunity is in your stomach and intestines. Oxy Powder, I'm not even going to just even describe what it does. Nothing flushes you out like this. And wasn't discomforting to me, but it's truly cutting edge. The Oxy Powder by Global Healing Center, discounted at InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. And your purchase of all the InfoWarsLife.com products funds the very tip of the spear in the InfoWar. So I want to thank you for your support. At InfoWarsStore.com, we have the books, the videos, the high-quality water filters, the Molon Labe Made in America T-shirts to promote the Second Amendment. So shop with the good guys, the white hats, and help us get the word out. We are listener-supported. InfoWarsStore.com. We're going to continue with phone calls. Alex Jones here back live. Joe Biggs, who's our reporter on the ground with Josh Owens up in Dallas, is going to give us his take on what he saw in Dallas at the bottom of the next hour. Again, this is Paul Watson's news story. Apocalypse scenario. Discoverer of Ebola fears virus could mutate. Professor warns of humanitarian catastrophe. What if it does go airborne? And they'll say, sorry, we got to let the planes fly in. And then just everybody starts dying in mass, and they'll probably give Obama a peace prize or something. And if you don't support getting Ebola, you're racist. I'm not even joking at this point. It's getting so insane. Right now, let's continue with your phone calls. John in California, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Alex, the only way to deal with criminals is by force. The political option is off the table. Boehner's not going anywhere. Obama's not going anywhere. You claim that 80 to 90% of the military listen to your program, and there are military officers inside the Pentagon that know about the U.S. equivalent of Operation Valkyrie.
Let me just be clear for a minute. I'm not saying 80 to 90% of the military listens to my show. I'm saying from what I've seen on the ground and what my other sources have said, 80 to 90% are now awake that our government runs al-Qaeda, that there's a criminal group that's taken over, but they're all compartmentalized and don't know what to do either. They are becoming belligerent, in Congress saying, no, your allies are arming al-Qaeda. No, we don't want to be part of this. The British military is doing the same thing. So those are positive issues. But, I mean, to sit here on air and talk about a military coup, for those that don't know, Operation Valkyrie was a continuity of government program the Nazis had. So they reversed it to try to use it to overthrow Hitler, and it did not work. Here's another problem. Obama is just a puppet. You'd have to remove the entire group of oligarchs, and they run the pension funds, the banks, everything. It's so deep. It has to be a complete cultural revolution, not supporting globalist institutions and moving away from them and just decrying them and not complying. And then they're going to start a physical war and a civil war, but that's better than going the coup route, in my view. Listen, the globalists might blow Obama's head off, and I hope they don't, and turn him into a martyr. Don't think that's not a rabbit in the hat they hadn't been thinking about. Can you imagine they'll use some white supremacist or something they drug up to take the fall? And they'll kill a body double, and Obama will retire to wherever. I mean, he is a pure fake. So I've war-gamed this. It's easy to sit back and say, have the military. Tell you got 2 minutes to break. What are you saying?
What I'm saying is that you're right. The oligarchs are entrenched, but we can arrest the entire leadership who are all puppets of them, put them on display, put them on trial, and you may not know this, but Stauffenberg, who led the coup in Nazi Germany, compiled a list of civilians, loyal Germans that could take over. They would hand it over to the civilians to deal with the criminals once Hitler was dead. That's why they failed, because they failed to kill Hitler. We don't want to see anybody get killed. We want them arrested. We want to put them on trial. The only people that can deal with this, and I say we take our chance with the military, because we don't have time. Ebola's on our back. They're going to start another false flag any moment now, and the moment that happens is when the military should move against them.
Well, I'll tell you that that's exactly the type of stuff that's being talked about. And I'm just a radio host trying to analyze this and warn the people. It's way above my head. It's way above everybody's head. And, of course, they brought the Ebola in. Of course they're trying to spread it. I mean, it's just they're horrible. I mean, we're in the hands of total demons. And the churches are government-run, so they won't tell anybody. I mean, we are in so much trouble. Just like those 54 million babies who are in trouble, who were murdered in this country. It's called judgment, folks. And I don't know what we do rather than spread the word. I mean, it's just, we'll be right back. Stay with us. Make no mistake, the organized global crises are being accelerated right now. We're taking your phone calls. Coming up, FBI director warns of Khorasan attack here in the United States by the group you helped create, so we're going to break that down. But right now, let's go to Marty in Texas. Go ahead, you're on the air.
Hi, forever listener, first-time caller. Let me get right to the point. Are we not living in the script of V for Vendetta, except for the one important difference? At least there, they had the vaccine for their false flag pandemic outbreak already ready to go before the dictator was allowed to take power.
You're absolutely right, sir. I hadn't even thought about that since Darren McBreen made that great piece showing V for Vendetta and other films tied into the current Ebola outbreak. That's a great point.
And then next, and the real topic of my call was, what, if anything, can we do about it? Well, what I've done is to start a Facebook community page called Ban Ebola Flights Now. And what I'm doing is aggregating all the real stories from INFOWARS, Health Ranger, and other sources, and calling for people to badger their senators and congressmen, not via email, but rather phone calls, overwhelm the Capitol switchboard and demand that these flights be banned, regardless of the poop that the CDC is spewing. And because they still care about the outcome and their fate from the upcoming midterm election, they may actually listen if enough people are screaming for it, and at least we can take that much of this matter into our own hands.
Well, very well said, Marty. Why do you in your gut think that they're obviously, there's no debating it, letting Ebola in, trying to spread it? I mean, that's just an absolute fact. How would they try to do that so openly, so arrogantly? What is wrong with them? Or do they know something I don't know?
I think that leads to the second point I wanted to discuss, and I'll try to do it very quickly. I'm sure you're familiar with the phenomenon psychologically of cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
Okay. Well, for those who don't, just quickly, it's people cannot believe that something that they have never experienced could possibly happen, especially when it goes against their belief system or their comfort.
That's right. America has been spared bad stuff for so long. We're like Native Americans that had never experienced smallpox. It wipes us all out. We have no immunity. We have no resistance.
Exactly. And so you take that to the point where just like 9/11, our government couldn't possibly and wouldn't possibly do that. And if you believe that, you must be crazy. Same thing here. How could the government that's here to protect us, just do everything in their power to make sure that we are not only unprotected, but we're overtly exposed?
You know who I feel sorry for is the firefighters, the medical workers, and the police. They are going to be the ones, if this really breaks out, they're going to be wallowing in it. I mean, they are going to be getting it in record numbers just like they have in Africa. Well, I'll tell you, if I was an EMT or a cop right now, I'd be so angry.
Well, exactly.
Why do the Dallas police have to go track these people down and arrest them? It's not police job to go out and pick up people that have Ebola or may have Ebola. That's guys in hazmat suits.
Exactly.
I mean, this is really dangerous. This is really out of control.
Absolutely. And to think that the poor ambulance driver was not told for 48 hours that he had been a rolling typhoid Mary wagon? Are you serious?
And they didn't even clean it for days after that. Exactly. It's incredible. Oh, but don't worry. They've got face scanning sensors, in the schools now. It's just unbelievable. Thank you so much for the call. Great points. Alex, Donna, Tom, Eric, and others, your calls are coming up. But first, V for Vendetta, Ebola. Bill in Iowa is an EMT who says he's quitting in 2 weeks due to Ebola scare. Alex in Wisconsin says he works for a bio-cleaning company, wants to give his take on the protocols that are obviously being turned off. Before we do that, we aired this piece a few weeks ago, but Rob Dew and Gary McBreen that put it together expanded on it. Clips from 12 Monkeys, clips from V for Vendetta, tying it into real-world Marines training to kill zombies, Ebola outbreak news, to show how Hollywood now meets reality. And then we'll go straight to Bill and Alex, Eric, Tom, Donna's phone calls. But first, let's go to this piece.
Well, it sounds like the perfect script for a horror movie. A virus with no vaccine and no cure kills thousands of people.
And I actually think the world will be much better when there's only 10 or 20% of us left. Dr. Eric Bianca.
But most frightening was the fact that in a crowd of over 1,000 prominent scientists, local newspapers reported that 95% of those in attendance gave Bianca sustained standing ovations every time he extolled the virtues of mass-culling microbes and man's destruction, and went on to laud the virtues of Ebola because it would kill 90% of the world population quickly.
The World Health Organization said on Tuesday the Ebola death toll jumped by almost 200 in a single day to at least 2,296 and is likely to be higher than that.
The head of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control confirmed Tuesday that West Africa is in a desperate situation, but that there is still hope that the outbreak can be reined in.
A top German virologist has caused shockwaves by asserting that it's too late to halt the spread of the Ebola virus.
The Massachusetts doctor arrived at the Nebraska Medical Center just before dawn this morning to be treated for Ebola.
And right now, his or her blood sample is on its way to the Centers for Disease Control.
Ebola is now an epidemic.
You start to get a sense of the rapid escalation now we're seeing of the virus.
Without specific drugs or a vaccine for Ebola, the only thing doctors can do for those suffering from this disease is treat their symptoms.
Ebola is not spread through the air like the flu.
One will not likely catch the virus just by nearing someone who has it.
In 1989, Ebola made its way to the U.S. This new strain of Ebola had shown the potential to spread through the air.
First, we've got population. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
A preventative vaccine for the Ebola virus could be available as early as next year, as British pharma company GlaxoSmithKline.
So you want to balance the need to get a potentially effective vaccine to the people who need it in a way that you can get some meaningful information as to A, whether it does work or not, and whether it does harm.
A confidential GlaxoSmithKline document recently linked to the press exposed that within a 2-year period, a total of 36 infants died after receiving the 6-in-1 vaccine of Infrix Hexa.
Can't dawdle on this one. We have to move with force and make sure that we are catching this as best we can.
Nearly 2,500 people have died
thousands more have been infected. Amid an international call for action, President Obama announced America's plan,
which will see 3,000 U.S. troops head to the region.
At the request of the Liberian government, we're going to establish a military command center in Liberia
under the pretext of humanitarian aid and dominate and occupy Africa through AFRICOM.
The security firm Halo Corp announced it will conduct a zombie apocalypse training exercise.
Al-Faraji will join about 40 other ghoulish friends in the Third World Village, where they'll bring on the apocalypse. Strategic Operations has trained some 600,000 military and law enforcement members using this technique.
We've got it down to a science, if you will. If there is such a thing, it's an art.
Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra, but let's take a look.
Attention. Due to the extremity of the simian flu crisis, all regular government functions have been suspended indefinitely.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
We have a global elite who in every publication, Eco-Science, the list goes on, current White House science czar, all they talk about is releasing mega bioweapons to reduce our numbers. And now they're leaving the borders wide open, letting aircraft fly in from infected countries and not even cleaning up from people that have Ebola. It's here, and I'm sure we'll do nothing, knowing us. Go abort some more babies and watch some more Sports Center, folks. It's what you want. It's what you get. And when a Khorasan or ISIS hits us, they'll take more of our rights as well, even though they publicly fund them. Because after all, those babies weren't humans, and now they say kill old people. They're not humans either. And you're not a human, and your bank account isn't yours. And doesn't matter. The trendy's ACL's here in Austin right now. You hear the rock bands and act cool. That's really matters. You can see how the people of the West are just like ready to be slaughtered, just begging for it, begging the New World Order to crush them. And the New World Order will oblige you. They'll give you everything you ever wanted. You act like sheep to wolves, they'll tear your guts out. Let's go to Bill in Iowa, then Alex. Bill, you're on the air. Go ahead. Thank you for holding.
Alex, I just got 2 quick points. First, when Mr. Duncan was sent home after 2 days the first time, primarily it was because he had no insurance. Nobody in the media has reported that. That's what hospitals do. If you have no insurance and you go in with the flu, they will send you home.
Well, that's right. Before Obamacare, they would take care of you, but now Obamacare lets them refuse care. They've gotten rid of the Hippocratic Oath. Absolutely, yeah.
And secondly, when the influenza A virus kicks in here in a couple of months, we're going to see an outbreak of Ebola because it will be airborne.
Well, a lot of doctors I've had on, medical doctors, have said it could mutate with all of these new vaccines they're giving people and with all the different flu bugs out there. They say that'll cause it to mutate. You say on the screen you're an EMT. Are you going to it says EMT quitting in 2 weeks. Is that accurate?
Right. Well, the hospital I work for doesn't even want to provide us with biosuits or have really no plan on providing us with biosuits.
Well, a biosuit would be racist, sir. You need to get Ebola. That proves you're loving.
Well, if you respond to a call and somebody's in a car crash and there's blood flying all over the place, you don't have to have symptoms to still get Ebola. I mean, the guy, you can't profile Ebola, so once the outbreak starts, you're not going to know. So every call you're going to have to be on be wearing a biosuit, or you get exposed.
Well, even if a few hundred people get it, it's going to cause hysteria and panic. And I just think Obama's done a great job, and we should all get Ebola. And I agree that babies aren't babies, and 2 + 2 = whatever they say. Isn't that just easier? Just to wear different color socks, act trendy, and support banning freedom. I mean, isn't that good? I mean, come on. The president is a Peace Prize winner. He funded Al-Qaeda. I'm being sarcastic now here. All right, thank you, sir. Alex, Donna, Tom, Eric, and others, your calls are coming up. Joe Biggs, who was up in Dallas covering Ebola. Going to keep back from him with a mask. I'm joking. He's going to be in studio with us coming up. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. INFOWARS.com, PrisonPlanet.com. Big Brother loves you. Never forget that. Meanwhile, the London Independent's reporting lab-grown penises developed by scientists and now ready for human test. That's the type of amazing stuff they can get, where they can grow hearts, lungs, you name it. So much potential out there, but also so much potential for mischief in governments and corporations swooping up these pathogens like Ebola, which we know our government and other governments have been messing with for more than 30 years. Alex in Wisconsin, thanks for calling. Thanks for holding. You're on the air worldwide.
What's up, Alex? I've worked in mold, asbestos remediation, and bio cleanup for over 20 years, similar to the cleanup guys seen on CNN cleaning that Ebola victim's apartment.
Yes.
And I just got to say, I've used more precautionary methods whilst painting moldy attics than I've seen with this Ebola scare. I mean, they were using blue painter's tape to seal the seams on their biohazard suits, which leads me to believe that this is either a fake/false flag or the 0.01% state wants this to spread.
Break down why you say that.
Why I say that they're not using precautionary methods, or why I think...
Yeah, I mean, as an expert, what you saw.
Well, you know, when we put on the biohazard suits, and the suits in general, either the Tyvek suits or the plastic sealing suits, every seam, the ankles, the wrists, around the face, everywhere it connects to other parts of the biohazard suit, we use a special type of chemical biohazard tape and seal it up. It also comes in every federal grade biohazard suit, like chemical tape, similar to duct tape. And they weren't using that. They were wearing their normal shoes walking around. And, you know, it's a fine particulate, viruses and molds and asbestos, you know, and it can get everywhere. And you try not to make it spread, and it seems like, you know, they were just kind of making a scene, making the show that they were kind of cleaning up, but not really doing the due diligence on what is, you know, the standards in this industry.
Well, that's what the other hazmat people have been saying when they call in. I've read the manuals. That's what they say. This whole thing stinks to high heaven and may just be a simulant. Ebola might not even be in the U.S. other than these patients being flown over here. Who knows if that's even true? When you're dealing with liars of this magnitude, you really don't know what the truth is. Thank you so much for the call. But days before that, they had the apartment workers cleaning up the vomit. So it just shows a total breakdown of the government bureaucracy. Either way you slice it, it's just total incompetence or total evil. But even an incompetent government could do what everybody else did and shut down these flights. Donna in New York, thanks for holding. You're on the air.
I was watching Morning Joe on September 30th, and Rick Perry was on. He was talking about how he had just met with Henry Kissinger prepping for the 2016 presidential election. Fast forward literally a few hours that same day, Ebola's in Texas. Then yesterday, the AP headline, Ebola case gives Perry real-time leadership test. I know there's a lot of facets to a false flag, but this is one. They're testing to see if people will back Perry so he can be the next puppet. Do not trust Rick Perry at all.
Well, Rick Perry did work with the big vaccine makers for biotyranny when he said it's the law with Merck. You've got to take Gardasil, HPV shot, and there was no law. It was all a giant hoax. And then he went to Bilderberg, and the Republicans I know said that they thought he'd be the front runner in 2012, but he didn't make it because of back surgery, and he was drugged up on TV and bumbled around a little bit. But I know Rick Perry is a front runner right now with the insiders. I mean, Rand Paul's the front runner with Republican and Libertarian voters. And I know he's just a great guy, especially compared to Rick Perry. But I was keeping Perry out of this when they were politically going after him, saying you better do a good job with Ebola. But now he won't ask Obama to seal the borders or to stop the flights. He's saying, well, check people at the border and maybe check people when they get off the plane. So that's better than nothing. But why do you have to get called out by Governor Jindal before he did that? That's a big question.
I think some of it is, remember when even you were backing him with the indictment, they did that on purpose. They did that indictment. So then people who even criticized him, you're like, you know, poor Rick Perry. Oh, they're going after him. So I think they were trying to make him sympathetic to people who normally would be right against him. So they were using that too. But just to get back to the Gardasil, in New York State, there's all kinds of commercials for Gardasil now.
Oh, yeah.
And they literally say it stops cancer.
Even though the insert says it doesn't protect you, doesn't cover the papilloma, one of the rarest cancers out there, huge problems. They won't tell you it kills people all over the world, that it's banned in India and Japan. We're a dumping ground for everything here. Amazing. We'll speak out against it. Warn young girls in your area. Where are the feminists when you need them? We'll be back with Joe Biggs, your calls.
We're on the march.
And more. Yeah, I don't want these flights coming in from countries collapsing. Does that make me crazy? I guess it does. A nursing auxiliary in Madrid has tested positive for Ebola after treating a patient in the Spanish capital. That's somebody they brought in with Ebola, just like they're doing here, and now it's spreading. Who would have thought it? To Spanish newspaper El País, am I saying that right? El País. The case is believed to be the first in which a person contracted Ebola from a source outside of Africa. Yeah, well, you just know the other shoe is about to drop with this guy running around for a week, vomiting everywhere. Back from the epicenter, from outside the hospital, from at the apartment complex, is Joe Biggs, a veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq, now a veteran of Patient Zero in North America, in Dallas, Texas. Joe, you were there for 3 days with our intrepid cameraman, who's also seen some adventures, Josh Owens, while he's been here. Give us your take on what you witnessed and where you see all this going.
It doesn't look good. The CDC wants to tell you that everything's fine, but just that press conference that we went to shows the unprofessionalism that they have there in their ranks. The fact that I asked them, don't you think that we should be doing something about stopping the flights from West Africa coming in to America? And they laughed at me, and they thought that that was funny. I don't think that's a funny thing to joke about.
By the way, we should take that video, even though it happened last Wednesday, and post it right now with the headline, CDC laughs at stopping flights from Africa. Yeah. Because 3 days after you did that, they started responding, saying, quote, stopping flights would make it worse.
Yeah, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. How does it cut it off at the head and stopping it in its tracks, how does that make it worse? You know, if we don't fly it over here.
By the way, great job going and getting those questions in.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to fight through all those reporters. Please continue.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand their logic there, saying that stopping that is going to make it worse. I don't understand how that happens. But just the press conference, just the snide remarks from the people there that were talking. Like Governor Perry had nothing to say even about Ebola, really. I mean, it was just jibber jabber. He was there just as a political figure to parade around, to kind of take, I would say, the eyes off the subject, kind of in a sense, you know. It was just a big dog and pony show.
Well, I saw the video where they laugh at you. Why aren't you moving to shut down the flights? You notice Governor General isn't laughing. You notice everybody else isn't laughing. You notice the state governors aren't laughing and all these letters getting written. Why isn't our governor calling for that?
Yeah, I mean, and they were sitting there like, well, that's something that we can't do. I'm like, well, you know, you're the governor. You talk to the president. And regardless if anybody on this panel that's here today can do anything about it, every eye in America was watching.
That's total buck passing.
Yeah.
It's other countries shut down the flights, shutting down the flights.
Over a month ago.
And what are they doing bringing them in? Like Spain did it, it's now spreading.
Yeah.
And then no one's going to get in trouble. What are they doing bringing Ebola victims into our countries?
And then Governor Perry goes and says that Texas, the medical staff is the most well-equipped to handle this. Meanwhile, the person at the lowest tier level getting someone off the street doesn't even know to pass it up the chain that, hey, this guy just came in from Liberia. He's showing possible signs of, the Ebola virus, and they send him off with antibiotics. I mean, that shows if it happens at that low level and they're not giving that information and pushing it down to the first responders, we're all screwed.
It's unbelievable. Remember a month and a half ago when we warned of this, the national media attacked us?
Oh, they said we were crazy. They said that we were just conspiracy theorists out of our mind. And here it is.
Well, notice how they laughed at you, though.
Yeah.
I mean, we go down to the city council and we say, we don't want the city of Austin to try to ban guns in the city limits. And they laugh at us when they're trying. Or we don't want fluoride. Here's Harvard study. It increases cancer, lowers IQ. They laugh at us. Hey, we don't want you flying Ebola people into the country. Ha, ha, ha. That's all they've got is ha, ha, ha. Ha, ha, ha. It's this smart mouth, swarmy attitude.
ISIS isn't on its way. It's already here. Ebola isn't on its way. It's already here. Tyranny isn't on its way. It's already here. You know, this is crazy, the times we live in. And these are the people that are supposed to be doing something. Meanwhile, they're laughing, they're joking, they're not taking this serious. I think they have a huge ego problem. They're afraid to admit that this is something that can get out of control.
Well, yeah, because Obama said there wasn't going to happen. There was no fear, no problem, not likely. And now they're just like, oh, it's no big deal. It's not going to spread. Everything's fine.
Well, you know, it's funny, though. They come out and say that these people who go to West Africa have the right to return. But meanwhile, we have Sergeant Morsi in Mexico. He doesn't have a right to return, and our government's not going to do anything for him.
Well, this guy isn't even a citizen that flew in.
Yeah.
And it turned out he had Ebola, knew he had it, and came here. Everyone but citizens has rights in this country now.
Yeah, that's true. We have nothing anymore. It's sad to say that we live in a time now in our own country where, as citizens, law-abiding citizens, we're now terrorists.
But ISIS gets rocket launchers.
Yeah, and they get free reign to go wherever they want. Illegals are paid, given bus tickets, and, you know, able to fly across the country without even any kind of identification whatsoever. I mean, like, it's like a
Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
What about this AP headline? Militants, FBI says, may be working on plan to strike U.S. FBI director warns of Khorasan attack, says that it's an imminent attack in the U.S. When they blow stuff up, or if they do, or shoot up a school, you know they're going to say we got to turn our guns in or something, or it'll be Liberty's fault. MSNBC had a headline yesterday, Second Amendment NRA to blame for Ebola, with no reason or why. So,
well, the Khorasan thing, too, though, was Obama's way of, because Obama, or was it a couple of years ago, said that we had already, you know, defeated al-Qaeda, basically. And, you know, we've already suppressed that. We're done with them. So now they're using a different name to kind of, so he can cover his own tracks in a sense. And he doesn't want to admit, once again, because of his ego, that he was wrong about that. And he's overestimated everything. So they're giving it a new name. So it doesn't look as bad. So we can't say that I made a mistake.
This is cognitive dissonance, though, because they know the American people faced with something this monstrous. Open borders, government funding al-Qaeda, government bringing in Ebola, government bankrupting the pension funds, government just trying to push us over a cliff. They're trying to wreck the country. The people that run the country want to bring us down while using us to build their world government, that when that's ready, they're done with us. So they're getting us ready. That's why everything they do is to shut the country down. Do you get it, folks?
It's, I can't stand to see where this is going. Like, every day I wake up and I have to read these headlines, and I'm just like, I can't believe this is real. Sometimes I pinch myself. I think I'm still dreaming.
Well, here's some good news. The British military came out and told their parliament, stop funding radical Islamicists, and that the West is behind this. Our own Joint Chiefs, I know, have been telling Capitol Hill that. So there is some good news that even the military brass, who are very political, understand this has gotten out of control. I mean, this has gotten out of control.
Yeah, on all fronts. I mean, you know, the border's open on the ground. We're leaving our airspace open for these flights to come in. It's a complete and total planned event.
What happens as 5 million people in Africa get it, as they're estimating, between 1.4 and 5, and they all try to flee here? We're just going to accept unlimited Ebola? Just come on in, but meanwhile, they got checkpoints on the highways? It's a joke.
Yeah. I mean, you see how quickly that one person affects so many people. You know, you shake someone's hand, you talk to somebody, you know, you get some people that are close talkers and spit when they talk. One person can affect 100 people. So this is why I thought it was so unprofessional at that conference that they were laughing at questions like that. Laughing. This is not a joking matter whatsoever.
Well, that's why everything's a joke. Abortion's a joke. Tyranny's a joke. Adulterated food's a joke. GMO's a joke. It's more than just a corrupt establishment. It's a bunch of trendies who literally have never been faced with anything in their lives, who just get paychecks and are lazy, and they think everything's funny, Joe. They don't know what the real world's like, I guess.
Yeah, they're firing officers in the military. Meanwhile, they're bringing in all these illegals that come in to join and be in the military. They're bringing in these voters. It's one big stage thing.
It's a bunch of lawyers and people looting the country.
Yeah.
This is a lawyer mindset of just screw everything up and then bill on both sides.
It's disgusting to see this. It's just, every day we go out here and we try to do what we can to tell people about this stuff, but there's so many people that just sit down and don't even pay attention. They won't wake up whatsoever. I just don't understand. With all this going on right now, this should be the largest awakening we should have right now in people with all this.
Well, I'm not putting folks in the 20s and 30s on a pedestal, but I knew my grandfathers and grandmothers. They were hardworking, smart, cool people who didn't take any crap either. And they knew how to skin a buck, run a trot line. They knew how to do electrical. They knew how to make cheese. They knew how to can food. They enjoyed working. And then I think about how I am lazy and pathetic compared to them, and I'm super hardworking and know how to do a lot more stuff than the general public. So, but I can see the degeneration. I mean, my dad, you know, grew up on a farm and a ranch, so he knows how to do everything. I don't know how to do stuff my dad knows how to do. And I think about my kids, and my kids are great compared to a lot of kids, but they don't know how to do anything. Just because I'm so busy, you know. My dad taught me how to live off the land. His taught him to be a businessman, to quote Hank Williams Jr. Mm-hmm. And the only thing I got of the old timers is how to shoot and fight, and that's about it. And I look at all these skills lost. 7 million people, major university studies, starved to death or died of complications from bad nutrition in the 10 years of the Great Depression. 90% were rural, most of them self-sufficient. We're now 90% urban. Of the 10% that are rural, half are self-sufficient. We have a collapse. We have a depression. We have a major Ebola or smallpox outbreak or something like that. Can you imagine what all these yuppies and people that just know how to play with their iPhone and act cool all day? Can you imagine when hell hits the fan, what it's going to be like with these people? All I got to say is thank God I'm sitting on a pile of guns and food.
Yeah, they're not ready for anything like that. I mean, like you said, most people don't have an attention span past the length of their arm because all they do is stare at their phone all day, all night, nonstop. If it comes down to fighting, they can't do it. You know, that's why drones are so popular. It's easy. You've taken that emotional connection away from combat, like how it used to be back in the day. You actually had to stab someone, you saw their eyes dilate. That's a life-changing experience. Now people can just push a button and then go on about their day, and it doesn't affect them.
I read about you in a magazine stabbing an Al-Qaeda guy. What was that like? Or was it a Connie guy?
Yeah. Taliban.
Why'd you stab him instead of shoot him? Just
I don't know. I guess I was caught up in the moment, I would say.
What was it, you jumped off an armored vehicle on him?
Yeah.
What was the story?
Yeah, they were shooting at us, and I jumped up off the vehicle and ran up the hill, and I was trying to avoid being shot, you know, basically. And I snuck around and just gashed the guy right in the side.
Did it work pretty well?
Yeah. But it's like I said, when you experience something like that, you never want to see something like that ever again. You never want to go through anything like that again. And you try to tell people that it's the most horrific, horrible thing ever. You know, and that's why with these drones, that's what scares me, because you take that emotional connection away from seeing something like that. It's just like playing a video game. It's easy to push a button and then go home to your kids when that one button you pushed killed thousands of people. But you didn't have to witness that. You didn't have to.
Well, that's like Kurt Vonnegut, you know, was in the planes bombing, and then he was on the ground being bombed. That's what Slaughterhouse Five's about. In Germany, a POW being bombed by his own guys. And that was my dad's dad, you know, did his missions and then was on the ground going into Italy and Germany. And that was really freaked him out, was the starving kids and the bombed out cities and the dead people everywhere. And then, you know, really making the connection. Wow, I was in planes flying above bombing people just a month ago.
Well, that's what the crazy thing with what's going on in Syria right now. I don't understand why we didn't attack ISIL, whatever you want to call them, when they were storming into Iraq on that convoy. They were bumper to bumper. A couple coordinated targets could have taken them out. Now they're all in Syria, and they're in populated areas with heavy collateral damage. You know, we're not, this has nothing to do with ISIS. This is purely a regime change. They want to put in their own Western puppet that's going to play ball, and that's what they want. It has nothing to do with ISIS. That's just a beard. They want Syria. They've been wanting. And then the next thing, they'll move on.
They even have the Saudi ambassador admitting it. Oh, and then Biden goes, oh, we're sorry. You need to stop doing it. And they go, how dare you? And he grovels. They're all on TV admitting they're behind this. That's how dumb they think we are. Makes me want to throw up.
Our president will salute a Marine with a coffee cup in his hand. I mean, that's one of the things that I went on a rant for about 3 days. That infuriate. You know, I was just so mad. I mean, that's the most disrespectful thing. You're going to make decisions that put young men and women in harm's way. Meanwhile, you can't even give them the proper respect to take a coffee cup out of your hand and give them a salute. I mean, this is how, I mean, it's right here in front of your face. The president doesn't even care.
It just sounds like a nation getting ready to fall to me. I'm going to say it right now. I really think the country's going to completely collapse. I mean, I really think everybody should have an exit plan. I'm going to stay here because it's worldwide collapse, but I just feel the yuppies are just going to tear us apart when everything collapses, and the inner cities are going to burn, and no one will even care about that either. We're just a nation. We're like the Romans. In 410, they'd been sacked. They couldn't even get up and fight when the barbarians were coming in. They were laughing and having sex parties as the barbarians came in and then murdered them all.
I mean, that's what they want, though. They've created such a the next generations coming through. They're giving these bogus educations. The 2 + 2 is 5. When it comes down to a time when they really need to defend themselves, stand up and fight back, they're not going to know how to do it, and that's what they want.
Well, the number one crime is for a kid to fight back against a bully now, because they don't want you to know how to defend yourself.
Yeah.
All right, Joe. Anything else you think is important that you witnessed in Dallas?
Just like I said, don't believe this hype that the CDC saying that they have this under control. Being their first hand, they're very unprofessional. They're not prepared for this whatsoever. So we as Americans have to prepare ourselves and do what we can. Like you said, a possible exit strategy, or just have things on standby, food, water.
Yeah, because other countries aren't going to let the Ebola people in.
No.
We are advertising, just like they advertise, if you're poor, come here, we'll pay for everything. They're advertising, here's where you come vomit. If you've got Ebola, you come hang your butt over America and just spewed Ebola feces all over us, and Obama wants that. I mean, I'm sorry to be gross, but that's it. You want to come vomit blood on us? We're here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry to be gross, but that's what it is.
Exactly.
We're a giant vomit bucket.
Pretty much. I mean,
America is an Ebola porta potty.
Yeah. and it feels bad to laugh, but I mean, it's such a joke of what's going on. I mean, this is the biggest joke in the world, and people can literally go home right now and sit there and watch the TV and pretend like nothing's going on. Everybody right now should be mad.
Exactly. I hope it doesn't have a big outbreak. I hope nothing happens, but it just shows what's wrong with the establishment. Joe, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
We're going to come back, take a few final calls here, ladies and gentlemen. Before I go any further, I personally am filtering my water. I personally am getting sun. I personally am getting more rest. I personally am taking the Survival Shield X2, Nascent Iodine, the Silver Bullet, Colloidal Silver, the Super Mill Vitality, the DNA Force, the Oxy Shield, all of it, ladies and gentlemen. The Oxy Powder to flush out my guts. It is absolutely essential to do whatever you can to get healthy in these crazy times. InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. You can read about the benefits and more details of each product at InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. The very best products, the best prices, cutting edge, and it supports the entire transmission, so it's a win-win. Final segment, your phone calls, straight ahead. I'm going to do a little bit of overdrive so I can get to everybody. Tom, Ron, Eric, Gennaro, Tom, and others. I didn't really get into Survival Shield X2 in the last segment, so I briefly want to talk about that. With all the madness going on in the world, I just know that I have my supply of Ultra Strength Survival Shield X2 for me and my family. Prepare ourselves. A few drops and you receive a powerful dose of key nascent iodine, the only type in the world. We have it, the crystal source. X2 comes from thousands of feet within the earth, and we run radiation tests before we even accept the pure raw iodine. It is totally pure. Turns into gas, folks, before we put it into the palm oil. It literally turns into gas. It's time to get prepared with Survival Shield X2 from InfoWarsLife.com. I take it every day. Secure yours at InfoWarsLife.com and store it in your preparedness pack or home cabinet. Take the Survival Shield X2 challenge today and support the transmission. Okay, Tom in Colorado, thanks for holding her on the air. Go ahead, Tom.
Hello.
Yep. Go ahead.
Hey. Hi. I'm not going to thank you, even though I want to. Am I on?
Yes, you are, brother. I promise.
Okay. All right. I want to give people an idea that I had actually just today about Ebola. But before that, I have something that I really wanted to say about fluoride. And it, compared to Ebola, it's sort of like comic relief.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's a soft kill over time where they kill us slowly and enjoy it. The cancer, the IQ reduction, it's kind of 2 + 2 = 5. It's Common Core for all. It's chemical Common Core. But real fast, tell us your points.
Okay. Rappaport is one of the best people you ever have on, and something he did back in 2003, I've heard you mention this, that the SSRIs, Prozac, et cetera, contain fluoride.
Yeah.
But it's worse than that. They actually are fluoride.
No, they control fluorine molecule, and that's what they attach the other arms to it from chemists I've talked to. Yes, it is weaponized, electrically active fluorine, basically.
Yeah, they call it fluoxetine, FLUO. Admitting to you, like you said, it makes them happy. They're laughing at us.
It literally eats your brain. Yes, it's. They love us. They care about us.
It's a stupid pill, and I know it's very racist for me to, to say that, but...
That's right. You should get Ebola or you're racist. I got to jump real quick, brother. I got to get to everybody. Thank you, Tom. Eric in Texas, go ahead.
Yeah, Alex, good to talk to you. Look, it occurred to me a while ago when I was listening that this Ebola, when you start affecting your police and EMTs and all your infrastructure people, your public servants, there's another aspect of your asymmetric warfare.
That's it.
Now, one of my other points is, we should be getting really upset about the fact that I can't even live my life right now. I'm sitting here with my phone in one hand and my go, no-go gauge in the other hand checking ammo. This is not the way for Americans to be living. And I've had to spend money that I could have put cows on my land on other preparations. So, I agree with the earlier caller that said we need to get a coalition of lawyers and military and whatever other forces we can get together, and we need to take these people out of office. If that's what it calls for, then let's get it done. Okay.
Well, I know this. Letting a bunch of Ebola people into the U.S. is treason. Nobody else does it. Our government is a bunch of scum at the top. And that's and then they're going to... It's just going to be hellish. And they're all going to fly off in their jet airplanes while the low-level government people have to literally face an Ebola pandemic. God bless you, Eric. Great points from Texas. We're going to come back in a little bit of overdrive. Infowars.com/show. Find the free feed. Some stations don't carry it.
Visit GCN.
Nightly news tonight, 7 o'clock. We'll have more, 7 o'clock Central. I didn't get to this, but we'll cover on the nightly news tonight, 7 o'clock Central, PrisonPlanet.tv. Cop threatens to take man's baby to Children's Services over refusal to show ID, but Ebola patients can run around anywhere they want. Claims nervousness is probable cause for warrantless search arrest. More jails refuse to hold inmates for federal immigration authorities, so the jails have all filled up and are pouring out. That's LA Times. Because the government's priority is taking money out of old ladies' wallets. Gennaro in Arizona, thanks for holding her on the air worldwide.
Hey, Alex, how you doing?
All right, brother, thanks for calling.
Listen, I just don't understand the Americans in this country, how they can listen to the audacity of the director of the CDC, Thomas Frieden, for the past month, go up in front of Congress and on national television and cause panic by continuously saying how out of control Ebola is in Africa. And then in the same breath, say nothing to worry about, banning air travel into the U.S. would make Ebola worse.
That is a fantastic point. So fantastic, I started stuttering. We should get his earlier press conference clips saying Ebola's out of control and then cut to him saying, let the flights come in. That's how you stop it. Set your house on fire. It's how you don't burn it down. It's just, why do you think he's so over the top?
This whole entire thing, I had a revelation today. I don't know. It just came to my mind that their end game, eventually Ebola will go airborne, and they will all of a sudden have the Ebola vaccines ready to give out. And because it's airborne, it'll have to be vaccines that are mandatory. And what better way to have them mandatory but then to bring in martial law and quarantine everybody in their homes, and they can vaccinate you in your homes, and they have martial law in place. And if you refuse to take the vaccine, well, you know what? We have FEMA camps we can bring you into for 21 days. And then those people in the FEMA camps will have to stay. I mean, it's just such a perfect plan.
No, that's it. And it not even next year it goes airborne or a year later. They get the vaccine in place. It's ready. There's all this fear. And then, oh, we've got it. And, oh, you've got to take it. That's been their past program. I really agree with you. I think that's in the cards big time. Great points. Good to hear from you. Ron in Canada, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, how you doing?
Good, brother.
Hey, just give me a story for 2 minutes, Alex. Just want to make a couple of points, okay, about Ebola?
Yeah, we got 2 minutes till the show's over. Go ahead.
All right, okay, so here's what they're doing. They're consuming all this bushmeat down there in Liberia, right? And they're spreading this Ebola. It wouldn't have been a big problem. I'm out here in Canada. We've known they've had that Ebola out there for a long time, but it was never a problem until they started letting them all in. These guys are virtually sleeping. They don't know what's going on. Obama is nothing but a gigantic puppet controlling a whole bunch of other puppets, and they're all asleep too. He can do basically virtually whatever he wants, and that's what he's done. I believe Obama to be a Muslim extremist. He's taking control of the country, asymmetrical warfare, exactly like you said. I've been a long-time listener of your show. I love you. You are amazing. I totally agree with all your points about Obama, El Bozo. This is an attack. He's controlling ISIS because he's Muslim. The White House is a control center for ISIS, and he's the leader. And I believe
I mean, listen, here's the deal. Whatever he is, by default, it is the controlled center for al-Qaeda. And by default, he is operating as the Grand Imam, the Mahdi. And I've said that. And I used to disagree with Glenn Beck and all those people. But now, for all intents and purposes, they are creating the clash of civilizations to bring in a world conflict that Albert Pike talked about in 1877, and it's off the charts. I appreciate your call. Sorry to Andrew, Paul, Tom, and others. I'm out of time. Great job to the crew. Great job to the affiliates, our listeners, sponsors, everybody. Please pray for INFOWARS. But pray for peace. Pray for all the children out there. Pray for the innocents. And pray for a mass repentance and a wake-up, and that our churches no longer be state-run operations, and that those preachers repent of being deceptive creatures. We just have to turn the tide here, and we can do that. Please support our local affiliates as well, and please support InfoWarsStore.com, all the great products there that help fund our operation. See you tonight, Nightly News.